Good morning, boys. I thought I'd put my face on this video since I'm not here today, in case you forgot what I look like. I thought I'd put my face on here. So today we're going to do our second poem. Remember this term we're doing grade 12 poetry. The poem is called Tonight by Percy Bysshe Shelley. I'm not sure how to pronounce that. It's Bish or Bish. Um, it is our second poem for matric and our second poem for this term. It's in your booklet, okay? So just refer to that. I think it's on page 4. So just refer to that as we start. So this first part of the video is just a bit of history that I thought was relevant for the poem to give a bit of context for the poem in terms of suspicions and stuff about the poem. So it is important for you to take notes of this stuff because it might actually inform the poem itself, and it might actually even make the poem itself a little bit more interesting, especially if you like love stories like May. Okay. So just a bit of background about Shelley. Let me just refer to my notes here. Okay, so this poem is a lyric poem. Lyric, so like a lyric, like a song. So it's very musically inclined. A lyric poem is very musically inclined, and it is also it's got like very strong and very powerful emotions. It's about very strong and very powerful and very compelling emotions. So that's what we should expect from the poem that we're about to do. So that's important to note. Okay. Something just to know about Shelley a little bit, like he was like a huge rebel. Like he just did whatever he wanted to do. His writing, he was a romantic poet, and his poetry was very politically charged, and he always took a stand politically, and he always just had opinions about politics, and he had opinions about being sexually liberated, and he had opinions about vegetarianism. He was very, very rebellious, and he often rubbed people up the wrong way, and he broke rules, and he did what he wanted to do. That's very important to note here. Okay. Um, so just to talk a little bit about Shelley's life and to talk about how he was actually rebellious, he was actually expelled from university. He wrote a pamphlet called The Necessity of Atheism, which totally went against what society was for at that time, you know, and the university demanded, he and a friend of his wrote this pamphlet about the necessity of atheism, and how like the mind cannot believe in God type thing, and so society was outraged by this, and the university demanded that he step down and get rid of the pamphlet and sort of denounce his authorship of this pamphlet, and of course he refused because Shelley was of course this rebellious person, and so he got expelled from university because of this. So his parents were obviously, you can imagine that his parents were not very happy with him, and they sort of demanded that he denounce his beliefs and he denounce his atheism, and denounce his vegetarianism, and denounce his like his sexual liberation, the fact that he believes that you could just like you should be sexually liberal. This is important to know for the poem. And he refused. What he did do is elope. So he found this girl named Harriet Westbrook, and he eloped with her. She was like 16 years old, and his parents again were like, "Don't marry that girl. Don't marry that girl." And he eloped with her anyway. Um, and this lady. Oh, something else to know about Shelley is that he actually drowned while he was sailing. And it was about, I think it was a month before his 30th birthday. So that's quite sad. And because he was so politically charged in his points of views and like everything, some people believe that he was actually murdered and it wasn't like an accident. He may have been murdered by maybe one of his enemies or something like that, because he had quite a lot of enemies, because he didn't he went against the grain. He if he believed in something and everybody else believed the opposite, he would still believe in what he believed in. um so he had a lot of people who supported him, but he also had a lot of people that hated him. Yeah, so that's that, just a basic overview of Shelley's life. All right. So someone else that's quite important, it's probably the most interesting thing about Shelley is Mary. So 3 years after he married Harriet, he met this lady Mary, and he was like completely blown away by her. And so he abandoned his wife. And this is where the girl in me is just like so trashy. He abandoned his wife about 3 years after they were married and ran off with this Mary lady. And I'm not even going to try and pronounce her surname. Wollstonecraft. Um, ran off with her to Paris. They explored Europe together. They went by ship, and they traveled by foot half the time. And at night they would read Shakespeare to each other. It was quite whimsical and like romantic and beautiful. I'm not sure how long they traveled together. And then eventually they came back. And when they came back, um, Mary was pregnant and Harriet was pregnant as well. And then Harriet was found drowned. His first wife was found drowned, and she had taken her own life. And so a few weeks later, Shelley married Mary. So why is this important? I think it may also be important in terms of what the poem is about, and you may already know what the poem is about, or you may not be interested, but we will see in a little bit why this information is important. But it's also important to know who Mary was, actually. Okay. Let me just see that I've covered everything. I have. Okay. So there's supposed to be something important there. So Mary is actually famous for having written the novel Frankenstein. Okay, oh, there it is. Okay. So Mary wrote the novel Frankenstein, and it's actually quite a so first of all, Mary, this girl that he met and he ran off with, first of all, she was very well educated, she was outspoken, and her parents were like these liberal writers. So she was really right up his alley, the kind of girl that he would actually like. Um, and also, how she actually wrote Frankenstein is Mary was at a party with this other poet that we may know called Byron. And so Byron challenged everyone who was a guest at this place to write a ghost story. And so she wrote Frankenstein. She was 18 years old when she did this, so it's quite phenomenal, and it's probably one of the most interesting things about Shelley. Okay. So it's very interesting for us to know why this is all relevant to the poem, and I'm going to read you a thing that may actually be relevant because people have a lot of suspicions about why he actually wrote this poem. Okay. So many theories attempt to explain the deeply personal meaning of the poem for Percy Shelley. Some argue that it reflects his depression and social anxieties. Others suggest that he was mourning the death of a child. Okay. Another theory is that he had fallen out of love with Mary and was pining after a new love interest. Because if you think about it, I mean, he married Harriet, and within 3 years he had met Mary. So who knows? Um, but it could also just be the poem is actually about this toxic, passionate love that he has for Mary herself. So this poem could actually be about that. Um, and perhaps Mary is the knight that he desires so much and writes of in such central terms. You'll see there's a lot of use of personification. That's important for you to note. There's a lot of use there's a lot of use of personification in this poem. Three different things are going to be personified in this poem, and he's going to declare love for one of them. And so we will see. We will see. So at this point, I'm going to add a reading of the poem. So please make sure that you've got the poem in your booklet. In your the booklet that I've provided for you, it is on page 4, I think. Otherwise, you can just find it on your list of content. And we'll cross over to the reading, and then you can follow. And then the video will come back to me where we unpack the video. Okay.
Tonight by Percy Bysshe Shelley. Read for LibriVox.org by Matt Walker. Swiftly walk o'er the western wave, spirit of night, out of the misty eastern cave where all the long and lone daylight thou wovest dreams of joy and fear, which make thee terrible and dear. Swift be thy flight. Wrap thy form in a mantle gray, star enwrought. Blind with thine hair the eyes of day. Kiss her until she be wearied out, then wander o'er city and sea and land, touching all with thine opiate wand. Come, long sought! When I arose and saw the dawn, I sighed for thee. When light rode high and the dew was gone, and noon lay heavy on flower and tree, and the weary day turned to his rest, lingering like an unloved guest, I sighed for thee. Thy brother Death came, and cried, Wouldst thou me? Thy sweet child Sleep, the filmy-eyed, murmured like a noontide bee, Shall I nestle near thy side? Wouldst thou me? And I replied, No, not thee. Death will come when thou art dead, soon, too soon. Sleep will come when thou art fled. Of neither would I ask the boon I ask of thee, beloved night. Swift be thine approaching flight. Come soon, soon. End of poem. This reading is in the public domain.
Okay, boys. So you've listened to the reading of the poem and you've gone through it, I'm sure, in your booklets. So now we're just going to do a bit of unpacking of the poem per stanza. I am expecting you to have your notebooks with you. You should be taking notes so far. So that's an expectation. So just before we get into it, I'm just reminding you again that this poem is a lyric poem. So that means that it lends itself, it's musically inclined. It's a musically inclined verse, and it is about very powerful and very poignant emotions. Okay. So Shelley expresses in this poem, he expresses a very intense desire for night. Okay. So in this poem, you'll see that night, as well as day, as well as sleep, as well as death. Those four things have been personified. Okay, so personification is used here. He speaks to night as if it's a person. He speaks about day. He speaks about sleep, and he speaks about death as if they are all people. And they don't really have a gender, but there's like quite a desire and quite a love for night and certain feelings for day, sleep, and death. But we'll get there. Okay. Um, there's also a relationship between all of these three things, like they're related in a way. But we'll see as we're going along. Let's start with stanza one. So here, Shelley creates a myth by talking to night. Okay, so night is capable of taking actions and making choices the way that a person does, and and night is able to sort of follow its own will and do its own thing as if like the same way that a person would. Okay. So in the first stanza, he says, swiftly walk o'er the western wave, spirit of night. So he's saying he's begging or asking night to come to him. Okay. And he's asking night to come to him and to spread itself over the sky, um, to spread itself over the western sky where the sun sets. So right, so where the sun sets, that's where the day goes, and then night comes in at the same place. So he is appealing to night to spread itself over the western sky where the sun sets. Okay. Um, he imagines. So while he's talking in the first stanza, he imagines what night does during the day, right? And in his mind, he says that night must be in an eastern cave somewhere, doing something. And we'll see now what it is that that day does according to according to the poet. He says that he suspects that night spends its day during the daytime. Night is in a cave, and in that cave, night is like manufacturing or weaving like making dreams, and some of these dreams are good dreams, and some of the dreams are bad dreams, and some of these dreams, like the good dreams, are intended to make night fall in, to make us fall in love with night, and some of the bad dreams are intended for us to be afraid of night. Okay, and so night spends its day making these dreams, manufacturing these dreams, weaving these dreams together. Okay. Um, so he says, the sweet dreams make the night dear to humans. So it makes us love night. We look forward to, so think about it as us looking forward to going to sleep because we're going to have good dreams. Okay. Or if we have nightmares all the time, we dread the night because then we'll have bad dreams. So depending on what dreams we have, we'll either love night or we will be afraid of night. And then he says that he is neither, he's not afraid of night. So it's not even about the dreams for him. It's actually just about just this obsession with day, or with night, sorry. So humans are either in love with night, and but they're also afraid of night, right? And I think that also goes back to the fact that when we go to sleep at night, we don't know if we're going to have good dreams or we're going to have bad dreams. So we love night, but we're also afraid of night. And the poet is in love with night without being afraid of it. Okay, he wants night to come, and he wants night to come without any delay. As he says there, he says, which make so he says, thou wovest dreams of joy and fear. This is what we're talking about, manufacturing the dreams, or to weave them, to like sew them together. And the next line says, which make thee terrible and dear. So on the one hand, we're afraid. On the other hand, we are like, we love night because of what the kind of dreams that we have. Swiftly be thy flight. So either way, he doesn't care. Just come. Like, I want you to come. So he is not afraid of the bad or the good dreams. He just wants night to come to him. Okay. Then we move on to stanza 2. And here there's some beautiful imagery. In the opening line of stanza 2, it says, wrap thy form in a mantle grey, star enwrought. So here he's saying that, so again, night continues to be personified like a person, and he's saying that the night must wrap itself in like this starry cloak, this cloak that has stars on it, right? So that creates the imagery of the actual sky, right? That the sky is this cloak that night puts on, right? And that's how we know that it's nighttime. So he calls night to wrap itself in a grey-colored cloak with stars woven into the texture of this cloak that he's wearing. So it's the sky with the stars are actually the cloak that night puts over its shoulders. Okay. Um, and then the line says, blind with thine hair, blind with thine hair, the eyes of day. So here in stanza 2, day is now personified. So the coming of night is like a cloak that night wears over its shoulders on the one hand, right? So nighttime is like a cloak, is what he's saying. And then he's also saying that nighttime is like hair, because in the next line it says, blind with thine hair, the eyes of day. So he's saying that eyes, because eyes are open, right, during the day, and the sun is out during the day. I know Shakespeare has referred to day as like the eye, like the sun itself. So eyes are open. So he's saying that night must blind day. So in the same way that hair falls over your eyes like that. So when hair falls over your eyes, then you can't see. So here he's comparing night to having hair, okay? And this hair covers the eyes of day so that day can't see, right? So he's creating that imagery, he's giving us a good picture of how day ends and night comes in the same way that hair will come. I want to show you with my fringe, but never mind. Okay. So there is creating that imagery of nighttime having hair and that hair covering the eyes of day. Okay. Um, so do you see there that day is personified? Okay. Also notice how day is written with a capital letter, so it's a proper noun, so it's referring to it as a person. Night is also written in a capital letter, so that creates that personification as well. Okay. So the action of day ending and night starting is the same way that a person puts on a cloak that's got stars on it, okay? And it's also the same way that hair falls over the eyes of a person, okay? Also, he says in the next line, kiss her until she is wearied out. So night must kiss day. So think of it in the way that you take someone, you smother them with kisses, and you kiss them, you kiss them, you kiss them, you kiss them, you kiss them until this person's like, ah, stop. That's what he's saying. He's saying that night must kiss day, kiss day, kiss it, kiss it, kiss it, kiss it, until day is like, I'm done, I'm leaving, and then day ends. So that action of day coming to an end and night starting is the same way as if you would grab someone and kiss them until they were sick of it and they wanted you to stop. And because the night is kissing day so much, day is like, I'm out of here, and then leaves the world, and then night comes. Okay. So that's the imagery. So there's three pieces of imagery there in the first one, two, three, 4 lines of the poem of stanza 2. Okay. Kiss her until she is wearied out, then wander over city and sea and land, touch all with thine opiate wand, come long sought. Okay. So again, I've already said that day is personified. He asks night to come and spread its black hair over the eyes of day. I'm just making sure that I've covered everything. Okay. Um, so it's not really that day ends because it wants to. Day ends because it's kind of chased away by night. Okay. Um, but also there's a sense of affection there. It's not like a dislike for day, but because even the way that night chases away day, it's an affectionate way. So there's an affection between day and night, I guess. You could look at it this that way because he annoys day with like kisses to get rid of her. Okay. Um, and he points out in the stanza that uh, when night comes, day withdraws. Okay. Um, I think it'll come a little bit later. When night comes, then day sort of comes away, leaves this world, right? So in the next couple of lines, in that still stanza 2, then wander over the city and sea and land, touching all with thine opiate wand. So that's a magic wand, okay? And so it's almost like sprinkling stardust over everyone, like over all the cities and the sea and the land and the hills and that. And so we imagine that night carries a magic, like a magic wand in its hand, and this wand has the power to send everyone who is touched with it to sleep, right? So if you know a magic wand, if you ever believed in magic, that you can touch something with a magic wand and it'll change or it'll go to sleep or whatever magical will happen. So again, the fact that people go to sleep is like an act of magic that night does, and it does so with a magic wand. Okay, so that's the third piece of imagery that's used in the stanza. Okay. Then we go on to stanza 3, and it says, when I arose and saw the dawn, so the poet is referring to himself now, I sighed for thee. When light rode high and the dew was gone, and noon lay heavy on flower and tree, and the weary day turned to its rest, lingering like an unloved guest, I sighed for thee. So he's saying that when he woke up and he realized it was day, he was actually just like, oh, so sad, actually. It says there. And when you sigh for someone, like think about when you miss someone, you're like, ah, I really miss someone, or ah, I really wish I could. So there's that sense of longing and a sense of desire and a sense of need that he has. So he actually spends the day depressed, if you think about it, because he spends the day missing the night. He spends the time that he is away from night. He spends that time missing night. And and it's kind of really sad if you think about it because daytime is our most active time. It's the time that we have our most human interaction. It's the time that when we do our work. I'm a bit of a night owl, so I tend to work at night sometimes. Not so much anymore, but it's also very nighttime is a very lonely time for me personally. Um, No, there's no one else there to interact with because other people are sleeping and you're awake. So, but he feels like at the way you feel like at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning when there's no one to talk to and there's no one to interact with necessarily at like that early in the morning, he feels like that during the day when everyone's awake and roaming around and being active and doing stuff. Um, so he says he spends the entire day just sighing for night, missing night, longing for night. Okay. He says when light rode high, remember the sun comes up and it's up and it's noontime and it's up, and noon lay heavy on flowers and trees. So the fact that like noontime is when the sun is highest in the sky, and it says it lays heavy. So it's almost unwelcome. Like if something is sitting heavily on you, you don't want it there. It's unwelcome. You want to pull it off. Okay. So and the weary day turned to his rest. Okay. So day actually leaves because it wants to go and it wants to rest. So that's why day ends, right? And it says lingering like an unloved guest. So here, daytime is compared to a guest that you don't want like in your house. So if you think about people that come over uninvited and like they just won't leave. For me, it happens particularly around supper time, and I'm on a meal plan, so my food is not necessarily very interesting, and there's enough for me. So now if you're gonna show up and you're just hanging around and you're not leaving, I'm kind of like this is awkward. I don't have any snacks. I don't have any fancy food or anything. So that's an unloved guest, where this person is kind of lingering in your house and you're like, when are you leaving? Okay. So the poet is pretty much saying that um daytime is an unloved guest. Like daytime is like that person that you wish would leave, and they stay too long. They overstay their welcome. They stay overstay its welcome, according to the poem. Okay. It says, I sighed for thee. So during the day, oh my gosh, I longed for you. I missed you so much while this person was here. Okay. Mm, okay. And yeah, so that's the use of simile, comparing daytime to an unloved guest. Okay, because it just won't leave. An unloved guest is someone that's there and you don't want that, like they don't want to leave. And you're too polite to say, when are you leaving? Okay. Stanza 4. So you can see there that the relationship between day and night is almost like a love relationship, like they annoy each other, or at least night annoys day to get rid of day. But the poet itself does not particularly like day very much. Okay. In stanza 4, we are introduced to death and sleep, and the relationship that death and sleep have with night. And the poet there says that death is night's brother. Okay. So it says, Thy brother death came and cried, Wouldest thou me? Thy sweet child sleep, the filmy eyed, murmured like a noontide bee, Shall I nestle near thy side? Wouldest thou me? And I replied, No, not thee. Okay. So the first thing you need to know is the relationship the relationship between death and sleep with night. Okay, so that's what we're going to talk about. So death is like nighttime's brother, because death is where. So when we die, we all have different based depending on our religious beliefs. We all believe different things about what happens to us when we die, right? But if we're all being honest, we don't actually know what happens. It's this uncharted territory. It's this place that people have been to but can't really come back and tell us. They've come up with different myths, like Greek mythology says that you're crossing a river to the other side. There's different like African belief is that you become an ancestor. Christian belief is that you go to heaven. There's just different beliefs about what happens when you die. It's uncharted territory. It's unfamiliar territory, and therefore it is dark. So do you understand why death and nighttime are sort of like similar to each other? Okay. And then sleep is nighttime's child. It says there, the sweet child, thy sweet child sleep. And you see again, death, capital letter, sleep, capital letter, personified. They are both personified. Okay, that's the other justification for why it's personification. Um, and here, sleep is nighttime's child. Okay, and that makes sense because what do? We sleep at night. Okay, so sleep comes in the spirit of offsprings, right? So the father then gives the son. It's like the offspring. So nighttime brings with it sleep. Okay. So that's why it is that. Okay. So what he's saying in the stanza is that death came to him and was like, hey man, if you're not happy with this life, if you want to get out of here and go somewhere a little bit more interesting, come with me, type thing. And he said no to them, to death. Then sleep came, thy sweet child. And I think he refers to sleep as sweet because we enjoy sleeping. Like sleeping is a time to rest, a time to recuperate, a time to dream. So it's something that is nice. It's not necessarily a bad thing. Sleep is not necessarily a bad thing, and he recognizes that sleep is not a bad thing. And sleep suggests um, the filmy-eyed, murmured like a noontide bee, shall I nestle near thy side? Like, oh, don't you just want to snuggle? Can I just snuggle here next to you? Can I just lie here next to you? And he says to both of them at the end, and I replied, no, not thee. So it seems to me like death and sleep come to the poet to offer him something better, right? So death says, let's go somewhere better, let's go to a better life, to the other side, to an easier life. We all know that no matter what our beliefs is, whatever is on the other side of death, we always talk about it as being good. You're going to be free of pain, you're going to be free of worry, and there's going to be no more tears and so on. It's a better place. So if death is coming and offering himself or itself to the poet, it's saying, hey man, come, we're going to go to somewhere that is better. Okay. And sleep obviously offers you rest and a time to like just to forget your problems for a night, because once you go to sleep, I mean, you don't have problems during the time that you're sleeping, and you don't have to worry about anything or how you're going to get to anything because you're sleeping. So both sleep and death come to offer the poet something better than what nighttime can. So for me, when I was writing down these notes, it's almost like the poet so far is talking to night in a very sensual and a very romantic love type of way. And I really love you, you're the only one for me. And in this stanza, he's talking about how other people have come and offered him what seems to be better. And he's pretty much saying, no one's better than you, babe. Like, you're the one for me. I would never die and I would never go to sleep instead of being with you. I would choose you over all of these things. Okay. All right. So he says no, no, not thee. Okay. Here it becomes a bit eerie because I said to you earlier in the video, I said to you that the poet is what did I say? I'm just trying to remember what I said. I said the poet in real life died a month short of his 30th birthday. He drowned actually in a boat accident. This poem was written a year before he died. Um, and now he's talking about death, and he's talking about how death came and death offered itself to him, and he said no. And now he carries on to talk about death in the last stanza. And it's really like a bit eerie. Okay. So he says, death will come when thou art dead. Soon, too soon. Okay. So he's saying that death will come uninvited, like death will happen, we will die, we have no idea when we're going to die. And because we have no idea when we're going to die, it's like death arrives and goes, let's go, my guy. You don't have a choice. Let's go. right? And in the next line it says soon, too soon. So for him, death at any stage comes too soon. Okay, it's too early. He still wants to stay and be with night. Okay, and he says, sleep will come when thou art fled. Okay, so we'll sleep when we're tired. Okay, we'll sleep when we're tired. I'm not tired at night. Okay, of neither would I ask the boon, I ask of thee, beloved night. Swift be thine approach, flight. Come soon, too soon. Come soon, soon, sorry. So in stanza 5, it says, death will come in its own time, and he emphasizes that it's too soon. Like, and even by saying soon, it makes it feel like it's just now. And this is where it gets eerie because not even a year after he wrote this, he died. Um, and every time death comes, though, like whether you're young or old, it always feels like it wasn't supposed to happen yet, you know. Um, and here our poet did like almost an unconscious prophecy of his own death because he died at the age of 29. He was 29 years old when he died, and he died in a way he didn't die of natural causes. He drowned. So it's not like he had lived life to the full and he had seen everything there was to see. He'd barely experienced life. I mean, I think so. I mean, I'm 35 and 29. I hadn't experienced anything at 29, really. Um, so he says that he can sleep when night is gone. Okay, so he'd rather sleep during the day. And he says, and to him, sleep is a waste of time. And he can sleep when he's dead. Okay, so again, it becomes like eerie, that whole like sleeping when we're dead. Okay. Um, Swift be thine approach flight. He comes. I think he comes sort of full circle because in the first stanza, he spoke about how um, night must come quickly. It says, "Swift be thy flight, come to me quickly." And he says it again there. He says, "Swift be thine approaching flight." Okay, I ask of thee, beloved night, swift be thine approaching flight. Come soon, soon. Okay, I need you to come soon. I need night to come right now. And so this is why I was saying earlier on in the video that like it's really hard to tell if he is if this poem is about his depression, right? Because someone who's going to sleep, like I know that people who are depressed really they sleep a lot, like a great deal, and some even may even struggle with insomnia like at night, and so during the day they would sleep. So he's like, I'd rather sleep during the day and I'd rather be awake at nighttime. Or maybe he's just a night owl. Or maybe like we said, he could just be talking about his love for Mary because that was quite a passionate love. Or it could be a new love. Okay. Because if you think about it, he doesn't want death. So death could very easily have referred to Harriet, his first wife that died, and daytime could refer to his reality right now, which could be Mary, whom he doesn't want, and night is this, new person. Um, so we can suspect all we want. So, okay, so this is the poem. I hope that you've taken notes. I'd like to thank Miss Barbelli. Miss Barbelli, I used a lot of Miss Barbelli's notes at the beginning of the poem, and I really appreciate that. Thank you to Miss Barbelli. And I hope that this poem was helpful. I will see you guys on Tuesday, tomorrow, and yeah, we'll unpack it some more. We'll do some questions and so on. Okay, have a good day, boys.